Hello and welcome to the Pig Edge, Teagasc pig podcast with me, Ciarán Carroll, bringing you all the latest news, information and advice to keep Irish pig farmers up to date. And for this episode, we're looking at environmental sustainability of pig production and the value of pig slurry with Ger McCutcheon, Specialist Pig Development Officer with Teagasc. And I first asked Ger, why is sustainability becoming more important in the world we live in today?
If we stand back a little bit and look at the world population, in 1960, the world population was 3 billion people. And today, as it currently stands, we're just over 8 billion. And it looks like in 2050 that the world population will be 9 billion. So within that space of 90 years, the world population has tripled. And that's really over the course of our lifetime. So as the world population is increasing, obviously, that's a good thing if you're selling food in that you have a higher market for it. But the resources with which to produce that food, haven't increased hugely. So technology and capability really is what you're looking at. And people are concerned about climate change as well. And is the human population rise, is that affecting the climate change? That's one question. And also, the production systems that we have, are we having a negative effect on the environment? So all of that is coming into the sustainability question. And obviously people are a lot more conscious now when they go and buy anything in the shop. They're starting to question what's the carbon footprint of this item, whether it's a pair of shoes, whether it's your flight, let's say on holidays. We're starting to see more environmental credentials, and in looking at those environmental credentials, people are starting to look at the sustainability of processes.
Okay, and could you give us then a breakdown of what sustainable areas are important for businesses today?
Yeah, often when they talk about sustainability, they talk about three pillars of sustainability. You have the economic sustainability, you have the environmental sustainability, and you have social sustainability. And if we look at the economic sustainability, we talk about whether a process is profitable, because obviously, and I suppose if we confine ourselves to the production of food and specifically pig meat, unless pig meat production is profitable, you're not going to have anyone to produce it in the long term. So it's not going to be sustainable in the long term. If we look at the environmental sustainability, you're also looking at what environmental resources a system may be affecting. And again, if it's having a detrimental effect on the environment, then the risk is that, we may be running out of time in terms of those resources being available to us in the longer term. So we have to be very conscious of the environmental sustainability of any system or operation. And then social sustainability is really whether society at large sees the system of production as being acceptable, socially acceptable or not. And often the environment, the economic, environmental, and social sustainability are talked about as the 3 Ps, which is environmental would be the planet, the economic the economic sustainability is the profitability, and the social sustainability is the people. So people, planet, and profit are the 3 Ps. And all of those parameters are looking at the system of production, and society at large is probably a lot more questioning now as to do we want these systems of production if we feel they are having a good effect or a negative effect in each of those areas, particularly in terms of social acceptability and environmental responsibility.
Okay, and what's been going on? What work has been done or is ongoing to prove the sustainability credentials of the pig meat sector?
Back in 2016, we within the Pig Development Department, we talked with Board BIA, and Board BIA brought in the Carbon Trust, and between the three of us, we looked at developing a model of the carbon footprint of pig meat production. And when we talk about the carbon footprint, we really are focusing on the environmental sustainability of the system. And the carbon footprint is looking at the amount of carbon dioxide equivalent. So we hear a lot about greenhouse gas emissions and the effect that they may have on climate change. The gases, the greenhouse gases that we are concerned about are the methane, the nitrous oxide, and the carbon dioxide that are coming from any production system. And the methane and the nitrous oxide are generally converted into carbon dioxide equivalents. So when we talk about the carbon footprint, what we're really talking about is the carbon dioxide equivalent of producing any item. So within the pig meat production system, we're really trying to, by developing the model, we're looking at the carbon footprint of producing a kilo of pig meat.
Okay, so you've developed a kind of a calculator to calculate that. How can farmers engage in finding out about the carbon footprint of their own production system?
I suppose, Ciarán, the biggest point that I would see on this is that we hear all about the targets that are there for agriculture to reduce its carbon greenhouse gas emissions by 25%. When you hear very broad figures like that, it's very difficult to figure, how do I, as an individual farmer, fit into that overall picture? And that's the purpose really of developing these models, to actually help people understand the process of what they're doing and how they may reduce the impacts that they may have. So for any pig farmer, I would say the first thing that they would do is talk to their Teagasc advisor and look at how or look at what the factors are. So each Teagasc advisor on the pig side of things has an input sheet that can be populated quite simply. If they're keeping records with Teagasc on the profit monitor system, those figures, half of the figures will be compiled, and the other figures will be figures that they may have to compile for the EPA, the annual environmental report for the EPA, and the other figures will relate to the feed ingredients that they're using in their diets. So by the first thing I would recommend to anyone that's thinking of getting involved in this, and this is voluntary, let's say a voluntary process this year, but I think it's worthwhile getting involved, figuring out, well, what is my carbon footprint, and then starting to see, well, if I make certain changes on my farm, then I can reduce the carbon footprint. And I'm not saying that people have to go and make those changes, but it is important that as a sector and an industry, we understand the carbon footprint of what we're doing. And secondly, by improving efficiency on our farms, we can probably reduce the carbon footprint of the system as well. So it's not, this is probably, if we stand back from it a little bit, it's more about using resources more efficiently, and so that will improve the overall profitability of our operation as well. So it's not a negative thing that we should look at and be fearful of. It's more a question, I think, of getting involved, understanding what our carbon footprint is, and then trying to benchmark ourselves against other producers and against ourselves, so that each year we look at our carbon footprint and we say, okay, this is the figure we achieved last year, but can we improve on that next year?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's well worth emphasising that encourage farmers to get involved and figure out what their carbon footprint is. We know the carbon footprint of pig production is low, but we need to be doing our bit, and to be seen to be doing our bit, I suppose, is important as well. You mentioned resources and things like that there. Ger, what are the main areas that farmers can look at or improve their carbon footprint with? What areas should they be focusing on?
When we've done one or two of these reports, the one area that's coming back is the carbon footprint of the feed ingredients that people are using. And if we're honest, the biggest component of that is the carbon footprint of the protein source, which in pig production is largely soya. So that carries a high carbon footprint and contributes to the overall carbon footprint of our production system. So I think, for every individual, it's very difficult to figure, well, okay, what's my carbon footprint? Am I better or worse than the average? But this system I will start that process of discussion and education for all of us as we go on this journey, because ultimately I would be more afraid that if we don't engage in this, time will force us to do it. So we're better off being involved from the start, educating ourselves, understanding how we fit into the picture, and trying to make improvements that are sensible improvements. So the biggest issue there is what for the couple of reports that I have done so far, it's coming out as the soya component of our diets. That's one component. The other areas obviously will be the energy usage on our farm. And again, if we were producing more energy or using more renewable energies on our farm, well, then we can improve our carbon footprint on that side as well.
Okay, yeah. So just two key areas really to kind of focus on for the moment anyway. And that's fine. We get our carbon footprint and all this. How do you see it as being important to the sector? How can that be used for in a positive way for the sector?
I suppose many ways, Ciarán. If we take, and I'm not trying to bombard you with figures, if we look back to 1990, the output of pig meat per sow was 1,350 kilos of carcass or of pig meat per sow in 1990. In 2021, that figure was over 2.5 tons. And the feed conversion in 1990 from weaning to sale was 2.45. Now that's down at 2.39 for a much heavier weight of pig being sold. And that feed efficiency element is a very positive, or has a very positive impact on reducing the carbon footprint of the production system. So, while you get involved in this, it's not about something that's going to cost you money. Ultimately, let's say by being more efficient, you can actually improve the overall system from a profitability point of view. But to answer your question, probably the most important aspect that I feel, in terms of understanding what the carbon footprint of pig meat is and showing that, let's say, to outside operators, is from a marketing point of view. It's because we're producing pig meat that has been sold in an open market, and we have to be able to stand over that product and say, look, we are actually working to reduce the carbon footprint, rather than saying, look, we know about these carbon footprints, but we're not going to engage in that system. So it is about engaging in the system, trying to reduce it, but using that from a marketing point of view to help promote the product that we're producing here.
Very good. And now, just to change the subject slightly, Ger, to move on to look at another aspect on the environmental side, the pig slurry and, the value of pig slurry. Look, it's been a really tough, as we know, a really tough 18 months, 19 months nearly now in pig production, and we've lost farmers. Unfortunately, some farms have gone out of production. At this stage, Ger, how many pig farms are there in the country?
There are probably about 260 pig farms throughout the country, and that may be in the region probably about 210 to 220 sow farms, but that with maybe 40 to 50 finishing farms associated with those farms. And the importance of knowing about those farms is that if a farmer has a pig farm near them, that those farms would have a supply of pig manure, and the positive, whether it's a positive, but certainly it's one at the moment, that as a result of fertilizer prices going up, the value of pig slurry on farms has gone up substantially as well. And if we take the figures that are produced there on the 1st of February, comparing the value of organic slurries, whether it's cattle manure or pig manure is coming out now at 58 euros per 1,000 gallons. And that's based on current chemical fertilizer prices. So if a farmer has a pig farm close to them, they should be looking at the idea of importing pig slurry to replace their chemical fertilizer. So each cubic meter, 220 gallons of slurry is worth over 12 euros, or 1,000 gallons of pig slurry is worth over 58 euros in monetary terms. So it's a valuable resource that can be used, and can be used very effectively to reduce the chemical chemical fertilizer requirements on farms.
Okay. And are there any restrictions on the use of pig slurry on pig farms, be it grassland or tillage farms or anything like that? What are the through the new nitrates? Is there any changes or anything like that you could tell us about?
Yeah, in the nitrates rules that were changed last year, all farmers that have an organic stocking rate above 130 kilos organic nitrogen per hectare must soil test all of their farm. Now that means that they must take a soil test for every 10 acres or 4 hectares of ground that they hold. And if they don't soil test, the soil phosphorus index of those lands will be index 4, which will restrict the amount of phosphorus that they may import in the form of pig manure. So that's one message that's very, very important. The other is that if you're a tillage or arable farmer, you must also soil test from 2023 onwards. And again, if you don't soil test, all of your lands will be deemed to be index 4 in 2023 and onwards. So it'll restrict the amount of phosphorus that you're allowed to use on your farm. And obviously, if you're going to soil test, you should be soil testing now rather than later in the year to get the best value out of it, and particularly if you intend to import pig slurry onto your farm. So that's one area that needs to be considered by any farmer taking in pig slurry. The other area that has changed this year is that all pig slurry must be spread with low emissions spreading technologies. So band spreaders or trailing shoe or trailing hose must be used in spreading pig slurry. And again, while that's a legal requirement, anyone that has been using the low emissions spreading systems before have been very positive about using them, because they realize, one, you're reducing the smell component of spreading slurry, but the main one is that you're getting a higher response to the nitrogen for your crop, and you've less nitrogen been volatilized off into the atmosphere. More of it is going into the root zone and been used by the crop then to grow. So while it may seem like a bad thing, ultimately it's a good thing from an environmental point of view, and obviously there's less smell around to be a nuisance for people within the vicinity of slurry being spread as well.
Okay, so a very valuable fertilizer and well worth looking at your neighbouring pig farmers. Where can
the other area, Ciarán, sorry, just for couldn't cross you there, I should have said that, you know, in fertilizer figures, each 1,000 gallons of pig slurry is the equivalent of a bag of 19,720. So 19 units of nitrogen, 7 units of phosphorus, and 20 units of potash. So 1,000 gallons is the equivalent of a bag of 19,720. And, you know, that's kind of the element of working out that figure of 58 euros per 1,000 gallons in terms of the nutrient value of that slurry.
Very good. And just final one there, I was just about to ask you, farmers that mightn't be familiar with their local pig farms or know of them, or what can they do about finding out where to source slurry from a pig farm?
Well, I would say if they want to talk to anyone within the locality, whether it's the Teagasc pig advisor or make contact directly with the pig farmer, there generally isn't a problem signing up to take pig slurry. In reality, the most positive thing a farmer can do is work out the amount of slurry that they need at the start of the year. And given these new rules and regulations that have come in, they really need to be, doing that now, so that if they have to soil test, well, they have the soil testing done rather than coming back later in the year and finding that they should soil test and all of their land is index 4. So the logical thing to do is you could assume index 3 for phosphorus up to now. That sort of is no longer available to tillage farms or to farms above 130 kilos organic nitrogen. So it's important really to, plan ahead, find out what level of pig slurry you could use. And if you have to soil test your land, get it done sooner rather than later, and there won't be any problem if they want to talk to the Teagasc advisor covering that area. That's not, the Teagasc pig advisor covering that area. They will know all the pig farms within the locality. Or if they want to talk directly to the farmers, there generally won't be a problem, particularly if they come and are able to tell the pig farmer how much slurry they're able to import for the coming year.
Excellent, yeah. And you'll get the contact details of the Teagasc Pig Advisors on our website, www.teagasc.ie/pigs. You'll find the contact details there if anybody listening would like to find out a little bit more. Ger, as ever, brilliant information there again today. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ciarán.
That's it for the latest episode of The Pig Edge, and my thanks to Ger McCutcheon for joining me on the show. Don't forget to tune into The Pig Edge for all your pig production news. And don't forget to rate, review and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss a show. And for more information on farming, go to teagasc.ie. I'm Ciarán Carroll and thanks for listening.